this video, I'd like to tell you about which iPad is the best choice for consecutive interpreting. I'm recording this video in early 2022, and I'm sure I'll have to update it many times because iPad models change. So let me just go ahead and share with you an image of the three different options we have straight from Apple's website. As you can see, Apple currently has three different models available: an iPad Pro, an iPad, and the iPad mini. And those are arranged in order of size from largest to smallest. In the past, there used to be larger and smaller iPad Pros, but right now there's just one 12.9-inch iPad Pro. There is the iPad, and there is the iPad mini, which interestingly enough was discontinued for many years, but now is available again. The short answer to the question of which iPad is best for consecutive interpreting is the one that's the right size for you. All of the iPad models have both Wi-Fi and cellular. I would recommend that you just get a Wi-Fi model. The Wi-Fi and cellular is much more expensive. And quite honestly, you don't need it because you don't need to be paying for an additional SIM card. You can simply share the hotspot from your phone and connect to it when you're on the go. Let's look at the different summary features. First of all, the size. Right now, the iPad Pro is 12.9 inches, which means it's the size of a large sheet of paper. The normal iPad is 10.2 inches, which means it's the size of a consecutive notepad. And the iPad mini is 8.3 inches, which means it's smaller than the average consecutive notepad. Now, if you're going to be carrying this around in something like a purse, then that iPad Pro is probably going to be too big, and the mini might be the best choice for you, but you might find that it's just not enough space for your actual note-taking. Now, there are lots of other features on here. Most of these don't actually matter for consecutive note-taking, what kind of camera it has. Nowadays, all iPads have good cameras, various options, and unless you're doing video editing and stuff like that, it doesn't really matter. The connector doesn't matter. It comes with whichever one you get. And what does matter is getting the right Apple Pencil to go with your iPad, because some iPads use the first generation Apple Pencil. That's the one where the cap pops off and you charge it by plugging it into the iPad. And that's currently the iPad. Whereas the iPad Pro and the iPad mini both use the second generation Apple Pencil. That's the one that charges by resting it on your iPad, and you don't have to pop off the cap or anything like that. And quite honestly, that's better, but I wouldn't pick your iPad simply based on that. You also, of course, want one that has a keyboard that works with it, and there is no Apple keyboard that is specifically designed for the iPad mini. That's why I prefer either the iPad Pro, which has the Magic Keyboard and Smart Keyboard Folio, or the iPad, which has the Smart Keyboard, over the mini. That, and I think the mini is a little bit too small. In terms of the cost, as you can see, the iPad is much less expensive than the other options, and it will probably do the trick, to be honest. The iPad Pencil first generation is also less expensive, and quite honestly, you don't need the power in the iPad Pro unless you're going to be doing things like video editing and making it your main machine. A few years ago, I would have said that you do need the iPad Pro because it was the only one that worked with an Apple Pencil, but that's simply not the case anymore. As you can see, we've got information on size and weight. The mini is very lightweight. The Pro is on the heavy side. I think you probably have figured out that I'm telling you to just get the inexpensive iPad, whichever generation it is when you're watching this, 9th generation right now in early 2022, because quite honestly, that is enough to do the trick. The other thing you want to think about when you're working with your iPad is simply being able to share the screen, to split your screen in half so that you can have something on one side and something on the other. Of course, you can do that with the iPad Pro, which is very large, but the iPad Pro is a little heavy and cumbersome if you're interpreting while standing up, whereas the normal iPad is the right size. And the iPad mini is so small that splitting your screen is hard. You can't really multitask. I think by the end of this video, my point has become clear. If you're out to buy a new iPad right now in early 2022, and probably for the foreseeable future, the right option for you is going to be the standard iPad with a pencil and a keyboard to go with it. That's going to be the least expensive and probably the best form factor and the best overall value for you.